Okay, this is Kelly Bredesen back with you again, talking about the global business environment. And this is going to conclude the legal environment for global operations class. I'd like to thank Brian Gravely for all the help and insight that we've got this quarter. It's been great. We started off talking about, international global law. We talked a lot about the International Court of Justice. We really talked about how common export documents are created and what it means to have a contract with another business when you're doing international trade. And there's going to be a lot of disputes when you're trading across the globe, and that's where we have the International Court of Justice coming in, kind of being the governing body that's going to listen to these arguments. It's going to rule on these arguments. We do not always want to go to court. That's why if there is an issue, if there's a dispute, it can go to arbitration. Perhaps they'll bring a mediator in who will listen to both sides of the case. Maybe they can settle it out, of course. We've got customary law and federal common law, and a lot of the laws that ended up becoming international trade law were kind of founded on laws of the past, and they kind of evolved into the modern era and the modern global environment. But they all stemmed from a lot of primitive law. When we're talking about international sales agreements, if I'm in the United States and I want to have an alliance with a European company, there's a specific way of doing that, and we will have a contract. Maybe we'll have a partnership. Maybe I'm selling a widget to another company, and they're strictly using me as a distributor for something that they need. Well, that's going to be in the sales contract. There's going to be a length of time in that contract. There's going to be specific money agreements within that contract. Um, you know, from from a lot of shipping type of contracts as well. If I'm going to ship something across seas, um, my shipping person will sign for it on the bill of lading. Once it actually gets to the transport vessel, it'll be documented again on that contract, and so on until it reaches its destination and the buyer finally signs for it. There's a whole different set of laws when you're doing global law. There's maritime law. There's specific instances that are only going to happen at sea. We studied a couple cases where shipments have been damaged at sea, and is that the fault of the shipper, the buyer? Can the sea damage a shipment? And some courts have said yes, and maybe you are liable, maybe you're not for that. And the International Tribunal for the Law of Sea is just another body that's really going to take the legal head on figuring out these disputes, making a set of maritime laws for the sea, and then go ahead and enforce those laws. Well, we're talking about international trade law. There's a lot of organizations that we learned about. There's a lot of groups that really define the big global trade. GATT, General Agreement on Tariffs and Trade. All these different countries had their own set of laws, their own set of trade laws, specific tariffs on certain goods. There was way too many. It got really confusing because everyone had their own set of laws. So what GATT did was they tried to have a general agreement for these trading nations and make a set tariff, a set way of trading, so it can be normalized and so it can be done a little more effectively and easier. The WTO, World Trade Organization, very big, many members. The WTO is kind of on a global scale the main trade organization that you're gonna want to focus on. Um, for the United States, in North America, we have NAFTA, the North American Free Trade Agreement, and this was set up in the 90s to give Canada, Mexico, and the United States an easier way to trade with each other. Let's make it more cost effective. Let's ease the regulations. Let's normalize our own continent trading so we can all benefit, enjoy the greatness of free trade. Um, I believe that the people who created NAFTA, or at least started it, had really good intentions. The problem is with NAFTA, some parties did really well, and some did less well than others, and there is some controversy there. But I think the inventors of it had their heart in the right place. It was definitely supposed to make things easier, and in some instances, it very much has. Price dumping, kind of discriminating against another country for whatever reason, and maybe to oppress them monetarily might be a way to describe it. But if you're a developing country and you want to do business with me, maybe I'm going to give you a different price than I would with everyone else, and that could be an illustration of price dumping. And of course, the United Nations has their own trade organization, and the focus now is the U.S. and the EU being able to trade freely, being able to trade with less restrictions. Okay, international commercial regulation. Couple of things we're really going to want to look at here. We studied ICANN, and it's really amazing to see the tremendous amount of data that they manage. When you think about internet IP, domain names, if I create a product here and it's a specialized gizmo that I created, it's going to have its own unique IP. It's going to have its own specific domain address on the internet that can't be copied or duplicated, somewhere else. So it really streamlines things, really organizes things. And then the FCPA, the Foreign Corrupt Practices Act, which is really an act to lessen corruption. As global trade kind of blew up and started to expand, the normal amount of corruption followed. I have FDI there. That's for foreign direct investment. And this is if, let's say I'm Coca-Cola, I want to set up a bottling plant in Brazil because it's cost effective. Well, then I'm going to create a plant in that foreign country. And the investment part is, I'm going to be hiring workforce. I'm going to be bringing a lot of money into a foreign economy. This has a lot of benefits for the multinational corporations that do this type of thing. With anything, there are criticisms of foreign direct investment, but it really has to do with me pumping a lot of revenue into a foreign country because I'm going to be doing business in their country. And lastly, here I have some references from some global business environment articles that I cited. And that will conclude it, and I hope you all have a wonderful night.